Alrighty, folks, we're going to discuss a topic that I get asked all the time, and I'm sure Casey does as well. And that is, as real estate investors, should we buy tenant-occupied properties? Casey, what say you?
I say it depends. I say there are pros and cons to both. Okay. So there's one thing to say buying tenant occupied properties. Then there's also buying properties, even if they're vacant, that have been mostly rentals.
Agreed.
So we can talk about maybe both things. So the first thing I would say, if we want to talk about buying occupied properties that have tenants inside, the pros and cons to that, my opinion is, the pro is, now people think of the cons and I agree, but the pros would be you can see already how they're living. And you can have it, if there's a history, there should be a history of them paying rent. So if you can get, before you buy the property, a rent roll, not just saying, yes, the tenant's up to date, because, every seller is going to make their tenant current if they want to sell the property, even if they haven't paid. You want to see a rent paid history. What date did the tenant pay and how much did they pay on each of those dates? If they've already been there for a year and they've been making payments on time or early or between the first 5 days, whatever the law is, and everything's groovy, and you go visit the property and they're living clean, heck yeah, I love to take those tenants. On the other hand, if you're seeing a problem with their rent roll and they're paying late and there's a special agreement on payment dates, or they're always paying late fees, or they're getting more and more behind and they live like trash, then no, I would not buy that property. So that's what I mean when it depends. It depends on if they're paying on time, and it depends on how they're keeping the property.
Yeah, I love all of that. And again, the other thing I will add to this, just because we went through the pandemic, is, depending on your state's eviction process. I mean, I'm in California, and there was a time where freaking evictions just weren't happening, right? I think even in LA County now, they're still not happening, or they just started or something. So one of the things that I did very early in the pandemic is I would not buy tenant occupied properties, because at the time there was no clear path to an eviction. So your options are keep the tenant or cash for keys. So I would only buy vacant properties. Then probably in 2022, evictions started. It became, not fast, but at least you could evict somebody for non-payment. It wasn't illegal, which it seemed like it was for a while in California. So then I would get discounts, because I personally prefer a vacant property than tenant occupied for, all kinds of reasons. Because usually I like to do the maintenance up front. It's hard to do maintenance around a tenant, right? Paint, carpet, all of that. I prefer vacant, but if it is occupied, I want a discount for sure.
Yeah, I prefer vacant too, but if it is occupied, I mean, another pro would be you only have to fix safety issues. Like, you don't have to do carpet updates. You don't have to paint. You don't have to fix anything cosmetic when the tenant's there. So the question then becomes, well, how long is the rest of their lease? Like, how long do you have? Because if you have another year or so, okay, great. And for a lot of people that are, putting kind of a lot that they have into the down payment, they may not have the money right now for repairs. And that's what a question I get from a lot of my students is, well, I don't have money for repairs and, and to buy the property. Well, if you buy a tenant occupied property where tenants are paying on time and they're keeping the property in good condition, all you may have to fix are any of those, almost lender required repairs or just safety issues you see during the
monoxide alarms.
Yeah, like the fence is wobbly, like the walkway, whatever. Fix the things that they could get hurt, obviously. But you're able to defer a lot of those cosmetic upgrades until after the tenant moves out. So you may have a year or maybe a year and a half or whatever the tenant might renew of getting income that you can put in your piggy bank for when they do move out. Now you can do the upgrades and you'll be able to raise rent too for the next tenant.
No, I love all of that. Let's also flip the script. My answer was very much single family home oriented. I will admit that if it's units, even if it's a duplex, triplex, quads, all of those, every time I've bought those came with tenants. Maybe there was a time or two where one of the units was vacant, but those are different, right? Because those are usually always rentals.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, I bought all of my duplexes, tris and quads, tenant occupied, and clearly apartments,
Yeah, and it would be
tenant
rare for them to come vacant. And if
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
if you
that'd be
bought
a
a
problem.
fourplex and all units were vacant, I'd be like, why?
Yeah, what happened here?
Why are they vacant? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's flip the script and talk about. Let's assume they're vacant.
Okay.
Do you like vacant units that were always like tenant occupied, or
No.
do you shop in the kind of homeowner ready to go properties?
Oh my God, this is a great question, and I really hope everybody listens to my advice on this. Buy properties that were not rentals before, because a lot of property management companies, they do subpar work.
Yeah,
They have
band-aid after
their
band-aid. Yeah.
Yes, their owners want a good deal. They don't want to pay that much for that repair for those tenants, whatever. So, property management companies, I mean, they're just known for doing the basic, the bare minimum. If duct tape will fix it, duct tape's going to fix it. And so, a lot of issues compound and make matters worse and stuff over time. You're getting a lot of like monkeyed repairs throughout the property, throughout the years. So, no, I would, if it was vacant and it's been a rental, I'm like, I probably don't want to buy it, really. I'd rather buy what I call grandma houses. To me, that's where I can get the best value. I want to buy grandma's house. Grandma lived in her house for 30 years and she hired licensed professionals, top of the line, the ones that advertise on the radio. Those are the ones that grandma would call and they would get it done for a premium, but I didn't pay for it. Grandma did. It was done right and it was done to last. Imagine buying that house, even if it has avocado green tile and shag carpet. I bet there's hardwood floors under that shag carpet, and I bet everything else has been kept very well. Versus a tenant occupied property for several years with Mickey Mouse jobs, and you're gonna always find yourself fixing things when you buy tenant occupied properties. Just from my experience,
that is such wise advice, and I agree with every word of it. Yeah, I think if I had a choice between grandma's house, to use your word, and a unit that's been tenant occupied by 5 different tenants over 20 years, every day grandma's house for the exact same reasons. I would say, sometimes when you go into these older homes, they've done things that you need to undo, right? Sometimes grandma's house is put together in a way that was great for grandma, but not for the general public. So, sometimes you're going to be removing stuff. But yeah, I mean, when in doubt, grandma's house all day long.
And I would say too, with that, this also depends on where you buy. And I don't mean where in the country, I mean where in your local area. For example, one reason why we haven't bought the lake house, Michael, is because where we want to buy is county property and there's no rules in the county. So a lot of these people, grandma and grandpa, when they were young and weren't grandma and grandpa, bought this lake house and added on and added on and added on and added on. And they did all these add-ons themselves without permits, literally themselves, having like cousin Jim come help them build an addition. So when you see some of these properties that were kind of pieced together from grandma, they were pieced together because the areas didn't require any checks and balances regard to the quality of work. So that's a problem that I see. So it does depend on, where you're buying and if permits and things are needed to be pulled, because that can make a big difference too.
Oh, yeah. Again, it's when you go into a house where somebody's lived there for 40 or 50 years, you just got to remember the rules of the road were different, right? 40 or 50 years ago, and they didn't do anything wrong. It's just, like you said, they got the family together on one weekend and they added 800 square feet.
Yep.
Well, maybe the foundation's not there or the wiring's this or that. I mean, you've got to look at some of these things for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you do a lot of great content. Where can people find you?
People can find me every day on Instagram and YouTube. You can just type in Brick by Brick Wealth and you'll find me there.
There you go, folks. Give her a follow, send her a note. Thank her for her time on ORAT. Thank you so much.